Hey everybody, welcome to another Friday night episode of Keto Rocks Radio. I'm Jim Hobbs, and somewhere on this screen is my carnivore co-host Brian Damage Forsythe of the band Kix and Rhino Bucket, and he is daunting his ZZ Top concert shirt, and he looks like he's squatting on somebody's front porch. It's not his.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hopefully you can go. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, that's good. I said, and I'm on my iPad, so that's why I'm like vertical this week.
Okay.
I don't know if it's showing up that way, but
no, you're showing up vertical. You're showing up vertical, okay. But it works. It works.
Vertical is great.
Vertical work. And back, and this time with her other half as well is always an honor to have Carrie on, but it's even a bigger honor to be able to have her other half. Ken. So welcome back to the show, Carrie and Carrie Husband. Great to have you guys back with us.
Thank you. It's awesome to be here again as our keto carnivore family and sharing some truths about what we're doing to make our lives healthier. So
yeah, thank you. Thank you for making room for us.
Oh no, we are honored, and the fact that you guys on the opposite coast, on the West Coast at Oregon, and Carrie, you've been checking in and being totally transparent with your journey, but I know a big part of being able to do that journey that you're on and to walk that path is to have somebody who's beside you as an encourager. So
absolutely.
why don't you share the importance that Ken's played in this journey, and you guys share whatever you feel like sharing. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you. I really wanted to have Ken to come on and share his side of it, because having a partner that is supportive in your journey to reclaim your health is paramount, in my opinion, of the success of being able to reach your goals. And I had a little bit of an epiphany yesterday that I want to share with you, because I did make a Facebook post about this yesterday. First of all, I started running again. Now that in of itself is amazing. Where's your little, there we go. Thank you. Got to have party hats and champagne bubbles going off everywhere. I didn't think that I was going to ever get back to the place of running again, ever. And, because when you put on 50 pounds, every single step that you make when you're jogging, everything jiggles and it just hurts. It just hurts the body. It doesn't feel good. And the taxation that happens, with your lungs and your knees and back, et cetera, yada, yada, yada. We were able to start running again, and it felt really good. The epiphany I had, though, I called it the thorn in my side. And the thorn in my side is my husband.
Wait a minute.
When I said that.
Yeah, because now you got Ken right beside you. That is not what she's talking about, people.
Well, no, it is what I'm talking about.
Oh, no.
Yes, no, but let me explain. And this is why it's so beautiful. Okay, so
everything for us is we use everything from a perspective point of view. So we like to broaden out and I take no offense, actually, it's part of my job description.
It is part of his job description. So it'll make sense when I explain it to you, because really, without him being the thorn in my side, I wouldn't be who I am today. There's just no way possible. He has been my greatest champion, whether it be silent or whether it be verbal and spoken, through word, action, and deed. He's been there the whole way. But having said that, in coming from a place of fractured and brokenness and having, fear of being left behind, I mean, I could go on about stories about woundings that I actually brought into the marriage. When we first met, well, not when we first met, because I've known him for years, man. I've known Ken for like 20 years now, and we've been together for 13 of them. But when we got married, we were teaching a fitness class. And one of my biggest pet peeves, and it used to just drive me freaking batty, was that I felt like Ken didn't have any consideration for me when we would train together. And what I mean by that is, if we were running, he wouldn't match my pace. It was like there was an expectation. Now, this is coming from my perspective back then, not what he was saying or not what he was projecting. It was me and my wounds. So I want to clarify that. So it felt like he was not having any consideration for me at all. Like he would, with his long legs, and he would run ahead and he would have these long strides and he would just go and I would be left in the dust. And so being left in the dust, all of the stuff would come crashing forward about me not being good enough. I'm being left behind, and he has no consideration, and he's being such a jerk. And why doesn't he stop? Why doesn't he match my pace? Right? I'm playing this tape over and over and over in my head. I cannot begin to tell you how many conversations we had about that, with me usually in tears. And you know, there was one time we were on this trail that we would run all the time when we lived in Bend, Oregon. And I remember him just not waiting for me. He just went. And then I'm getting all this fear because I'm being left behind. What if something happens to me? And Ken has all this beautiful trust in the world at this point, right? And he's like, we're on a loop. It's not like you can get lost. We start at the truck and we loop and we come back to the truck. So it's not like you're going to get lost or anything's going to happen. It's a public trail. But yet at the time I could not see that. And so for years, I would always have this element, you know, that I couldn't match up, and I would strive to be as good as my husband, as fast as my husband, as strong as my husband, because I was afraid I was going to be left behind. Now that presented a huge challenge in our marriage, and that presented a huge challenge even when it came to food. I can't even begin to tell you, like, if I'm counting calories, like the way I used to do it, not with keto, but when I was doing it before, when I was having, you know, carbs in my diet and I had to count every single calorie, I would get so angry because he could eat more than me. Like, he was allowed to eat more than me. And so everything that I was feeling, I always projected it on him. And it's going to make me tear up here. Shoot.
It's okay.
My husband was so gracious in all of this and having loving kindness as I'm wrestling my own skin and my own body and my own inadequacies. And he never once put any shame or guilt. All it was encouragement. And he has this incredible, wonderful ability to balance it out so that he's not stroking me all the time, because I don't need it all the time. It's like in those exact beautiful spirit-led moments where he will just drop a nugget of encouragement, of inspiration in a moment, just to help lift me just a little, but not so much that I become codependent on it. Like, why aren't you encouraging me? Why aren't you telling me I'm doing a good job? So the epiphany that I had when we were running, and this is only because all of these wounds have been healed in me, is I decided to start running. I just, all of a sudden I said, hey, I'm going to start running up the hill. So he starts running with me. So the first day running, we're running up the hill together and we're side by side. And I'm like, yes, this feels so good. We're running together. I can't believe we're doing this. And we make it back home. And I don't even really make a comment about it, but I'm like, oh, he's finally matching my pace and we're doing something together, right? Well, that was once. The next time we went running, that didn't happen that way. It was the same old, he's pulling ahead of me. And in that moment, there was something that switched in me. And I saw the beauty in him not compromising. And I heard this phrase in me, and it was like the divine masculine said it, but I could hear my husband saying it through the most love and compassion anyone could ever say, would be, why should I compromise myself for the sake of you? So I'm going to say it one more time. Why should I compromise myself for the sake of you? And in that moment, now, if you didn't understand our journey and if you weren't in my shoes in the place I was at in that moment, because I was actually feeling good in the moment, I was running again. Oh my God, I was running again, right? And I was pacing myself and I had breath. My asthma wasn't kicking up because my diet had changed. I'm on, because of keto, I'm allowed, I can breathe. So I'm running again and I've dropped half the weight that I had before. And so in that moment, I saw Ken for what he has done for me in his not compromising his stance. He was somebody that I could chase after now. In that moment, something was so precious that was released to me, because it wasn't feelings that I wasn't adequate enough or I wasn't keeping up. I'm like, everything that my husband has done for me has been so that I had something to chase after, something that would drive me, something that would push me further than I ever thought possible, something that would allow me to challenge my own limited beliefs of who I am and what I'm capable of doing, because he chose not to compromise himself. Because he always pushes ahead. He's willing to run into the unknown. He embraces life and he takes these challenges and nothing stops him. So in that moment, the thorn that was in my side, it was the very thing that drew me to him to begin with, is his ability to grasp a hold of the world and to survive and overcome against all odds. And that fortitude that Ken had is what drew me to him. And I'm like, this man is incredible. His stand, his way he lives life. And it was the exact thorn in my side for years of my marriage, because he was pulling something out of me without him even saying it through words, just by his actions of who he is. And it always poked me and it prodded me and it stung me, but it was always in love. He never once put me down for any of it, just allowed the journey to unfold for me. So everything changed in that moment. And I remember I was watching him pull ahead and I'm like, go, baby, go, run your race, go. I'm right behind you. And it was such a pivotal moment for me. And so much, my heart just was exploding. So emotional about it. I'm sorry.
No, that's awesome. No, it's beautiful. No, share.
But I was able to finally see it as something so beautiful that I had fought against for so long. And to have him there this entire time as I'm coming into my own, and I'm embracing who I am, and I'm experiencing things without the pain and the suffering of the separation and the wounds, because they're just not there anymore. I took the time. And the first thing that started this whole journey was getting my food and getting my body in order, so that my body was in a place that I could heal from the inside out. Because when your body isn't healthy, you're focused on all those external elements of what the body is, that you can't deal with the essence of the things that need to be taken care of on the inside. So I see how it all works. I see the beauty in it. I see the beauty, and even in our relationship, when I got ballooned up again and I put on all the weight, and how my husband never once pointed the finger, never once said, honey, you're getting too big, you need to tighten things up again. He didn't do it. Not once, because I know that he knew who I was. I have no idea why I'm the host now, but I knew that he knew, he understood that I would find my way back. He understood that. And so he just let the journey unfold for me just the way it needed to, and just was always there. And it's not that he didn't stop and wait for me at times when we were running, because he did do that, because he did recognize that. But at the same time, he still was pushing himself along the way. So I sure hope that Mr. Hobbs comes back and joins us.
All right. It's that time of the evening where we get a chance to check in with Mr. Brian Shanker of the MeatTribe for those meat deals of the week. And I'm just waiting to see what he's going to have for us tonight.
First, let me apologize for missing the last week's podcast. That's the only podcast I've missed so far with you guys since I started. So my apologies.
Accepted.
Yeah. All right. So I'm coming back with a vengeance, though. So I've got some pretty good stuff here. So normally, I like to stick to steaks and meat, like, red meat and stuff like that. But Food Lion has a couple of deals running through August 2nd. And I think they're worthy of letting everybody know. They've got some whole Boston butts for 99 cents a pound. And then they also have some whole chickens for 99 cents a pound. So those are really good prices. And since now I've been spatchcocking whole chickens on my smoker, I'm probably going to go pick up maybe 4 or 5 of those things for sure. I still have some pork butts, so I got to stock up on the chickens. Have you been doing chickens at all, Jim, Brian?
I actually don't do chicken myself.
Okay.
I'll do wings once in a while, but my only poultry's been that 2-year-old frozen turkey that we just got through massacring. So I think I'm done poultry for a while. I'm sticking to the meat.
Okay. All right. Well, for everybody else, if you want some whole chickens and pork butts, really good sale at Food Lion. And next up, so Kroger, they've got a couple of deals running through the 2nd as well. They have Boston butts on sale, buy one, get one free. So I don't know how great of a deal that is, but 50% off. And they also have some choice grade boneless strip steaks for $7.99 per pound. And Giant Eagle, their deal runs through August 3rd, and they've got some certified Angus beef boneless New York strip steaks for $9.99 a pound. And the best deal that I have for you is at Harris Teeter.
Oh,
drum roll, please.
Go ahead.
Their boneless ribeye steaks are back on sale.
Hold on. Hold on. That's worth celebration.
All right. So that's the Rancher grade boneless ribeye steak value pack for $7.99 per pound. The small pack is $8.49 per pound.
Woo.
And the choice grade boneless ribeye steaks are $8.99 a pound. So
all right. Well, thank you for this week's meat deals of the week. We appreciate it. There's nothing else to talk about. That's it.
No, I saved it for last.
Wow.
And that's the last deal that I have. I knew that was going to make everybody happy.
That definitely makes me happy. So I will be heading there this week to pick those up. When does that deal run to, Brian?
The Harris Teeter deal runs through August 2nd.
Perfect.
And it starts on the 27th.
Perfect. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for giving us that great news. Way to bring Christmas to July. And we will see you next Friday, same time. So thanks so much. Have a great week.
Sounds good. Take care, everybody.
All right.
Bye, Brian.
Bye.
And eating this way is difficult when you're around other people that don't do it. You know what I'm saying? It's like they can't comprehend the reason. Like, why are you just eating meat all the time? And so the social pressure that's there, you don't realize the social pressure that's there until you make a change like this. And there's just a total lack of comprehension as to why. And because we've been conditioned because of the medical system and whatnot, they assume that we're just like committing suicide because we're choosing to eat this way. You know?
Yeah,
like,
that's mostly what I get is like you're gonna drop over dead with like clogged arteries, and I'm like, no, that's not how it works. But
well, and the mental cognition, right? The mental clarity to me is what has been so fascinating, is to eliminate that fog that came from all the carbohydrates and all the things that I was eating. The mental clarity. I mean, Ken and I don't think we would really be able to do what we're doing with the sacred languages at the level that we are if we were still burdening ourselves with so many carbohydrates that just bog and fog the mind. There's just, wouldn't you agree? I don't think it would be possible at the level of the stuff that how we're being able to work through things. That's just my thought, at least personally.
Well, the funny thing about being in your moment, you're in your moment. You don't know until you're out of your moment. So it's all relative. I mean, right? It's just where you are and what you have to navigate is that moment until you have a willingness to change. It's the journey of life. You mentioned it in the in the measure of the loop, but this is until you move into another expression, you're simply going to express where you are. That's all you can do.
Right.
I know for me personally, to move into the realm of the frequency of meat, I'd be lying to say that it wasn't. I had to navigate an old paradigm, and reframe things and totally collapse fear of what it potentially could do and harm the body. I had to re-educate myself, and that's usually the biggest stumbling block for anyone right now. Is the process of re-education, of breaking a program to introduce a new program. And for anyone that does that, that's courageous. That's incredibly powerful to break free of something that's projected on you to see. But that's, again, this is exactly what we're doing as a people, as a collective and as the sovereign individual. It is learning how to navigate beyond the restriction of what's projected upon us.
Yep.
And that's very difficult. And I see everything through the lenses of what Carrie even said. I find it very humorous that, well, not humorous, but is kind of like just a metaphor that, honey, we're on the same loop, right? Like,
well, it's funny now. I mean, I think it's humorous because in looking back at that, right, it's the same loop.
But we're on a loop.
We're in a loop.
We're on a loop. And, when you're aware of that, I grew up in a health food environment, and I grew up, my whole MO is I can jump in and out of the meat thing. To me, I don't have to get regimented in it as a steady diet. And I'm okay with that. I've learned to say, I tried it for a season, and I can do it, but also I'm also very attentive to what my body is frequencing back to me. That's part of what we do is, what we do as stewards, this is all temple language. And so I'm attentive to a frequency. When it calls, I listen, and then I respond accordingly. And so when it calls for a frequency of something other than, I oblige. I allow it to process through. I collapse all realities around me, and then I reframe them to reconstitute it. And then I allow it to do. Everything is just frequency to me. That's all it is. And in that, I'm able to totally collapse what is and what is not. I've allowed myself, I've educated myself to then. This is the power of who we are as a people, is that I don't have to have another person's interpretation define where I am or who I am, right? I don't know how you filled it up. That really makes no sense to me, because as in the language of what, trying to keep it innocent here, but the language of what we see and how we see, I have the ability, and therefore if I do, then we all do have the ability to collapse something and fill it back up through our own definition. That's sovereignty. Yeah. And so, so I see everything that way. Food is not distance from me. It doesn't say, I cannot separate it from the language. It's all process of ingestion. It's all procedures of fulfilling an intention to be called healed and whole and well. Mm-hmm. That by definition is called holy. Holy is the same language as sound. It's all etymology that we've distanced it to say it's something that's unattainable, but it's not. It's the gentle procedures of fulfilling its mandate.
In restoration and becoming healed and whole.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so in that measure, and so Carrie, in her accolades, I greatly appreciate how she sees me, but I cannot see any different than that. This is my nature, is because I see everything from the perspective of the potential of whole as healed as well. All the same word. So in that measure, that's actually the language of magistrate. That's the language of priest. It's a language of right stewarding, and it's a real currency to me. And so, again, food, frequency, magisterial, it's all the language of navigating our own sense of wellness to then, because that's all self-governance. Mm-hmm. This is all sovereign language again, of reestablishing what, again, we can separate lie from truth. It's really dependent on what you deem that to be. And that's neither here nor there. That's the sole responsibility of an individual to navigate their own loop. But right. I will say this, I'm so thankful for the ability to see beyond, to break a contract of an old paradigm, to establish a new.
Exactly.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on your beautiful sharing, Carrie, and in regards to your running and how your perspective changed of how you view Ken. And Ken, I'm totally on board with what you're saying. And it's the reason why, if people could realize, like when you were sharing your story, Carrie, it was a great analogy for exactly having two people in the same house, one eating poorly and the other one eating healthy, and the person who's eating poorly being really ticked off at their partner who's eating healthy. And if you think about it the way that you were explaining it, it really is, if you step out of that me spot and look at it, well, why would I want the person who I say I love to be as healthy as they can be? And you literally get a chance to witness the transformation that this person's going through, the same life, the same 24 hours a day as you are, but they're further ahead. But you said something, Ken, which I think is, people lose grasp of it. That's a perspective that you're further ahead. It's a loop. You're going to walk that same ground that he is, except for the chance, you get a chance to change that perspective and how you view that loop and how you view what he's doing. And I think for so many people, especially here in the United States of America, we somehow have given up that sovereignty, that power, to a government that really doesn't care about you. They care about profiting in the monastery way with money, which was proven to me last week with the whole nutritional recommendations, when they're literally spelling out Lucky Charms, frosted mini wheats as the recommendations for a nutritional plan. And so if people would take back their sovereignty, take back their divinity, and start to realize everything they've done up until this point is not it's not waste. It's a learning ground for them to be able to realize what's possible. And I was sharing with you guys off the air before we started recording this podcast, and we come in habits. And my wife Peggy said, she goes, ever since I've known you, you've always go, hey, that's the way I've always done it. That's the way I like doing it. Going on a road trip, going to Carolina Beach. Well, I got to experience this. Now, a lot of those were nothing but programs that I've probably have erased 99% of them as I go through. I'm sure I got one or two that I still have to process through. But I was telling you guys, the last couple of weeks I have, and Brian, you'll be shocked at this, but I've kicked the habit of eating my roasted salted peanuts. So I don't eat the roasted salted peanuts. I've also kicked the habit of having stevia in my coffee. I'm just drinking it with butter and Redmond salt. And those two little things, you would go, oh, that's really got a meaning thing, but it's made all the difference in my world. So, and I've seen that play out in the real world when I get on the scale, how I am feeling this week as opposed to 3 weeks ago. So I was at 199 this morning. This last week, I've had more energy than I've ever had. I mean, I've been getting up in the morning, doing my Wim Hof, doing swimming laps in the pool. In the evening, I do the same exact thing. And I say this because until you experience that which you weren't accustomed to, everybody else around you is talking Greek. So it doesn't matter what Ken's experiencing, doesn't matter what Carrie's experiencing, doesn't matter what Brian Forsythe's experiencing, or Brian Shanker, or anyone who's watching this podcast. It only matters what you are experiencing. And so when you can take everything that you're doing and take accountability and inventory all the things that you are doing and use everything that you've done while you're in this loop, I think your perspective really can change if you're totally honest with yourself, and you'll start to experience a new you and a new lease on life. But you cannot go back to the way you were living your life. It's the reason why misery loves company. Everybody wants you to eat the crap food because they haven't found the willpower to break free from that program, which is the reason why the most lovable thing you can do is encourage that person, but to live that out, not to shout it out to them, live it out. You're living your life is the greatest testimony. And yes, you may be just like Carrie. You may get ticked off that this person who's not slowing down for them, or they're not changing their eating habits. Come on, don't you love me enough to have a piece of birthday cake? Or don't you want to celebrate this momentous occasion? But when you hold to your ground, it's the most lovable thing you can do, because not only is it the true you, it's the genuine you. And like you said, Ken, you're in tune with your body. You're not in tune with what other people's bodies are saying. You only can hear the frequency that's going on in your body. And you realize that, listen, that's what I have to listen with. That's what I'm responsible for. Is how am I responding to that voice and to that knowledge that's within me. So anyway, thanks for sharing all that, but it really stirred up something to me. So I just needed to jump in and share that.
Well, I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know any other way than to encourage that way. I mean, I appreciate what Carrie was saying, and I know her heart, and but I don't know any different. That's the thing. That's just me being me, and that's my good pleasure. I mean, it's one of the, when we first met, one of my conditions about unconditional commitment of oath was that I'm not here to change you.
Yeah, that's right.
And I remember saying that when we first met, and I know it's an oxymoron on conditions and conditions, but yet they live in the same space. There actually is conditions to unconditions, right? Unconditional love. And that is that I commit, and I did commit to the contract of unity and everything that is between that. And the one condition to that is that you are your own driver. All as I can do, as we in sovereignty would know this, is that I'm responsible for myself and my own actions. When I'm aware of myself, the loop becomes now of a spiral. And if I'm following my own destination, and not for self-promotion, it's not that about it. So actually it's about the awareness for the sake of humanity. It starts to move in an upward arc, and that's the language of looping that goes into the spiral. People call it awakening or arise, but it is simply the awareness and then activating in a responsibility. If I do that correctly, then I can represent, first of all, it's for myself. And if I do that, then I know that my wife directly benefits. My heart is that, you know, until someone, I'm always looking for someone to give that directive to me. And I make room for my wife. If she wants to jump ahead, then jump ahead by all means. I do not do it for control.
That's really hard to do that when you're so far ahead, just because that's the way you live.
I'm also, you know, coming 60, so it's a different, that even the age discrepancy.
Yeah, we have 9 years between us.
You know, there is time in that I've had to navigate, you know, some fracture of my own and do my own healing. Again, if we comprehend what wholeness is as a response, as a responsibility of knowing accountability, then really it equates as a doctorate. And until I'm given the title of doctorate, I'm in practice. And because that's the language of whole and healed. And so that's the whole language, what we're saying, whether it's through language or food, spirituality, does not matter. It's all, the whole loop system of this world is based on ill and well.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's it. That's the separation. That's it. Everything else is simply the gap between, because the whole definition of rooting it out of good and evil actually means ill. It means ill to well. And so there, to say, what is the intention? Well, gravitate to one or the other, for goodness sakes. You're either going to be entrenched in ill, or at some point you're going to realize that again, choice is before us. We can only be the sum of our choice. That's all we can be. That's it. And so I always encourage people to choose wisely, choose often, right? Because it's a stepping stone, right? And that's what I do. I apply, and I'm thrilled that my wife is the benefactor of my choices, you know, but that's also reciprocated, that I watch my wife. I cannot be where I am and do what I do without the support of my wife.
Right.
I went into a meditative state this morning, a sacred space, and it was purpose to go into this sacred space. And I'm to extrapolate out revelation of where we are through the language of frequency, because the food is directly related to this. The food of where we are for cognitive abilities is directly related to this. And this is why toxins are so promoted, because how dare a nation arise as sovereigns, right? Like, you know, I find this frustrating, but yet I don't allow the frustration to undermine where I am. I don't allow that. I just choose neutrality in this and go like, well, I'm responsible for myself. And that's what allows me to run my race and how my wife sees me. But in that language, I again, just like food is a frequency, I have to remove myself to do my own temple care language. And so I went into a sacred space this morning. I woke up very early at 12 o'clock and I went into the sacred space. It was quiet. And I'm comprehending lightning and frequency of all this stuff. And yet on the top of my list, I have, you know, pages I wrote down this morning. On the top of my list, it is rub your wife's feet more.
Aww.
Now, I mean, I got some really amazing stuff here that I like to share on our platform, but I was amazed, and it really pierced my heart that it said, rub your wife's feet more. Why? No, it's not necessary. I'm just sharing that because it's a responsive frequency to me, but why? It's because I don't do it enough. And it gives me the opportunity to rewrite a program to make something new. That's just where I am in my loop. That's where I am, and I'm able to see, and it's all connected.
I love it when you rub my feet.
I know you do. But that's how it works for me. That's the support mechanism that why wouldn't I support my wife? Like
Right.
for me to come on in the frequency to connect with her, it's what the relationship is all about. I don't believe in derision. I comprehend division because that's the process of multiplication. But when I, am fulfilling who I am, regardless of the past of what my wife had to go through experiences, and I see her wrestle, but again, like she said, my race is solely my race, and I'm running that race, and we get to do it together. So yes, everything I do is supportive of the relationship. So 100% in agreement with where she is, what she's doing. And to me, it's a language of honor and respect. And that's a currency of sovereignty.
I love too that Ken, in the process of allowing me to express and do that, if let's say if I decide to bring something in my diet that day that I normally wouldn't, that might trip up my losing weight. He knows that I'm aware of making these choices. And again, that expression is, it's my choice to put in what I want in my temple. And then that which I reap from what I'm sowing is going to be my responsibility. So
Absolutely.
there's no like, well, honey, you wanted to drop 10 more pounds in 2 months. Do you think that is going to stagnate you? Do you really want to do that? He's like, it's not my job to do that. It's not my job. If you want to have an apple cider,
have an apple cider.
Have an apple cider. I'm not here to be your food police. I'm not here to say, that's going to throw your momentum off, because you're the one that has to walk it out. And
Absolutely.
I so appreciate that, of liberally giving me the ability to choose my own path without having somebody trying to dictate it for me. And
Well,
that's why I appreciate it. So he's not that thorn. I thought he was a thorn, but from my perception, but when I actually saw all the liberty that he was giving me, all that freedom, this entire time that we've been together, to make all the choices, even when I was gaining all the weight, he just let me do it. Like I said, he knew that I was going to loop back around and that I would get myself in check, but he also knew he was going to have to end up dealing with all the consequences because of how I was going to manifest them, because there was a lot of boohoo and tears. I can't believe I allowed myself to get fat again. I can't believe that I have to go through this again. And he just stayed as the silent, loving partner, allowing me to wrestle away and just saying, hey, I'm here for you. And being there. Hey, Ken, do you think you want to go for a walk? Yep, let's go do it. Hey, do you want to start doing the high intensity interval training again? Yep, I don't really want to, but yes, I'll do it. Just to be there. Oh my gosh, what a gift. What a gift I have.
Yeah. We if you need the world to think like you do, or in order for you to be okay, then that's a huge red flag that you're not okay. But
Right.
when you give the same freedom that you want to be given to you, then you begin to understand something that's bigger than your perspective before, the me perspective. You start to look at things differently. And there was a meme that someone sent me this morning, it might have even been Conover, about there's many paths around the mountain to the top. The only people who are showing ignorance is those who are running around the mountain, pointing out that you're taking the wrong path. And so the reality of it is, when we allow the freedom of someone who we care and love about to go ahead and have some apple cider or whatever it is they're having, let them have it. That's their expression. That's what they believe they have to have at that moment for themselves. It's no judgment on you. So why do you feel compelled to judge them? And the world would be so much further along if we could just appreciate the person for who they are, and not our egoic perspective of what we want them to be, when the reality of it is that's not our job, nor should we want that thrown onto, that burden placed on that person. You talk about frequency. Let's look at music. I mean, music's beautiful, and it doesn't matter how it's being played out, whether it's kicks, rock and roll, or country, or bluegrass, or, any other genre of music. It's all based on frequencies, and they're expressing themselves, something that came through them that they wrote. And it's beautiful. If you can see the beauty in all things instead of judging, believe it's your job to be the one running around the mountain judging. Oh, that's wrong. You don't play it that way. You don't do this. You don't supposed to eat that. You're not supposed to have apple cider. Do you want to really go through where if we just realize that we have the power to rest in the peace and let everybody live their life peacefully, we would get along. But there's also frequencies that try to keep you in that duality, to try to believe that you need a government to set the nutritional standards or have an American standard diet. But those people who break free, like Brian broke free, and I'm sure, as he said earlier, a bunch of fingers are pointing at him going, you just can't eat meat all the time, read all those eggs. You're gonna clog the arteries. You're gonna have a heart attack. You're gonna die. In the meantime, Brian just keeps on doing what Brian does, and with a smile on his face. But I don't ever hear Brian, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you got there pointing fingers at people like, "Oh, you're not supposed to be doing that."
Well, I try not to. Every once in a while, I'll feel it coming out of my mouth, and I'm like, oh.
Well, I love what you said, Brian, about leading by example, because I think if we can become a shining, radiant group of people that have embraced their sovereignty, they've taken their life back, their lives are radiant, their skin, their way they communicate, the eyes, the clarity of the eyes, this is going to help begin to stir the hearts of others and to get them to start asking questions. So as maybe life frequency is failing them, or they're in a diminished state, and they see the vibrancy that are those that are, taking back their life in all of its facets, body, soul, spirit, mind, the whole package, they'll start asking questions. And then that is when we have the permission to be able to speak into their lives. And I've said it before, and I will continue to say it. It's not up to us to say, like you said, pointing out you're on the wrong path and going around the mountain ourselves time and time again. If we just keep going up the mountain, if we keep taking our journey and holding our hand out behind us, we're inviting people to come with us when they can see the hand and when they begin to ask the questions. But by being the example, that's where permission is granted. Because that's the only way. Otherwise, you're serving yourself to make the ego feel comfortable. Well, if we all would just do this, you know what? I don't want to live in a place where we all just do the same thing, because I see the beauty and the diversity. Oh my gosh, the different expressions. I'm in awe now of the things that I couldn't see before because I was so narrow-minded. I was so narrow-minded on my perception of everything. And now I see the beauty around me. And again, it first, the only thing that changed, that caused everything to begin to be different, was for me to start taking my health back. I mean, truly, that was what opened the door for the rest of it to come in, was me being responsible for my temple, choosing a different path for me that I could take my health back. And then everything just started falling in place. I had no idea how powerful that was until I did it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was huge.
Huge.
I mean, that was a springboard catapult into our ministry, if you want to, however you want. I mean, we're
12
all
years later.
Representation of some form of ministry. But yes, but absolutely, when we took charge of that, I mean, it was supernatural. I mean, and I'll leave it at that. I don't need to go into what was going on, but there was a level of awareness that there was something in that where, like, there's so much in the language with what's in the blood, and bringing clarity to that. And there's something just dormant that's waiting to be awakened. And for goodness sakes,
within us.
Yeah. I have enough wrestle in my own resolve, and we should all be aware of that, I just look at things again from a different perspective, only from my unique perspective, but I just need to be attentive to my measure. And if we can do that unselfishly, we can redefine selfishness. right? We can collapse selfishness and say, well, wait a minute, because I guarantee you that a master knows the art of self-serving. Has to. That's redefining it in the innocent way what it should be, because that's how you reach that level of, you know, awareness. But when we do that, we can take matters right here. It goes all inward. It goes all into the realization of our awareness of moment.
Yep.
And in that, that's where wrestle and resolve share the exact same space, and I can move at that at light speed, and that's what I choose to do. And that's how I choose to see. And my heart is that, my heart is that the world would learn to navigate beyond the restrictions.
Yes.
That their eyes would be open in a collective measure, that they would step into the realm of, and I want to be careful with this word because wisdom is such an overused word. It can be such a controlling word or a manipulative word, but really wisdom is the level of knowing yourself well.
You know, I don't think this is something we've ever discussed, but Brian, what was the reason that you, the way you ate before you went keto carnivore? What was the reasoning that you ate the way you did back then?
Well, there were a couple things. You know, I grew up through the 60s and 70s, so you know the term healthy eating, it wasn't healthy, and I didn't know any better. You know, the whole low fat, you know, count, you know, being aware of calories. I was never like a calorie counter, but I don't know. At some point, it's weird because the decision to cut the meat out of my diet at first was like a health thing. I remember this is way back, like late 70s, early 80s. I remember we had a show at this club in Baltimore or Pasadena, right outside of Baltimore. And there's a McDonald's across the street. And I went over there to get something to eat. And I remember actually Steve went with me and he got sick too. We both got sick. And I remember thinking it was the meat. So I decided to stop eating meat. And then after a while, you know, after I did that, I was still eating like chicken and stuff like that, but then I eventually just took it right down to just eating fish and vegetables. And, you know, then the whole, you know, animal cruelty thing kind of crept in there, and, you know, I kind of went along with that. And so it was just really, it wasn't really, there wasn't any proof as to why I did it. Like I had, my reasons were just things that I heard here and there, or, you know, it's like I just kind of was doing it for no real reason. And it wasn't until I started, you know, I was uneducated in that area, like everybody else. I thought I knew what was right and what was healthy, but I didn't. And so when I stumbled onto some of these, you know, the first keto people, and I started reading books and watching podcasts and all that stuff, I started to realize how little I really did know and how wrong I was about everything I was doing. So that's really it. I mean, it was such a vague decision to do that. There wasn't a real firm reason.
It's amazing how, you know, you can, and there's nothing wrong. And my point is the fact that it's nothing wrong with testing what somebody else is putting out there to see if it works for your body. But it's so important, as Kent said, that you have to spend time alone. You have to spend time to get in tune with your body. So when you test these waters of what somebody else is saying is good, you can find out if it's good for you. It may be good for somebody else, but it may not be good for you. And if that's the case, that you have to trust your body and your divinity over what somebody else may be telling you, which is the reason why I'm so thankful that on this podcast that Brian and I never tell people what to go do. And we never, you know, we even got our vegan friends who've come on here, and I get vegan comments all the time. The coolest comment I can get from my vegan friends is when they text me and they go, you know, you guys make meat look so good. I want a piece. I want a steak, you know, but hey, everybody's on their own journey. You will get to where you're supposed to get to. We all, it's as Ken said, it's a loop. We're going to pass each other many times getting to the top. And it's your perspective if that person's ahead of you or behind you. Being humble is not caring where people are, only worrying about what's going on inside with you to make sure you can take that next step and move forward on your journey, and not being critical of what other people are doing on their journey, but only encourage them for the journey. I take it very much like, being on a highway. Everybody's at different milestones, and there's no reason to get mad because someone's at milestone 3 and you're milestone 1, and there's people talking about they're at milestone 88. It's the journey, and you should be going, hey, 88, man, keep going to 89, and the 3 go to 4, and 2 go to 3, and we should all be encouragers regardless of where we are in the journey. Brian wasn't a bad person because he was eating a McDonald's, I'll say a Big Mac, whatever, and then he didn't become a bad person because he's eating fish only, and he didn't become a bad person because he's eating steak only. Brian is Brian throughout that whole process. To judge him on his journey is not fairly judging, is my point. And so if we can get away from believing that we got to judge somebody differently than what we are believing at the moment, life would be so much more peaceful, and we can rest in that, to go through life in that peaceful state, realizing and appreciating everything that comes around us. So it's one of the things that I love, what Carrie and Ken, what you've been sharing with everybody this evening, is the fact that Carrie's been totally transparent on this journey back. And and I hope everybody realizes it doesn't matter where you're at. You have to start, if you truly are going to take control over your life, you truly have to start doing and making decisions solely for you. And that's not selfish. It's what you have to do to become the best you that you want to become. And you're not shaming anybody. You're not being arrogant by being 10 paces ahead of that person. You're just not. The battle is within you. That's the perspective that you have to deal with. And once you deal with it, you're going to see that the world that you were judging that was so messed up, you're going to see all the pieces of the puzzle come together and go, wow, that's a pretty beautiful rainbow that I'm looking at right now. And you go, why in the heck was I so mad at all those different colors? So, well, I'm not going to keep you for more than an hour, and I think we've done that. So thank you guys so much for joining with us. As you know, it's always an honor to have you on and sharing your story and your journey every month with us, Carrie and Ken. It's great to actually have you on board with us, and I hope between you and Brian Shanker and myself, Brian doesn't feel left out this tonight.
Yeah, I don't judge anyone but anything other than a haircut. That's it. If it doesn't fit this mold, it doesn't work for me. That's another right condition, unconditioned. No, all in fun.
Well, here's the beauty. Regardless if you have hair or have no hair, Brian's going to give you a bit of advice that's benefited himself. And if you choose to test these waters, feel free to test them. But Brian, what's the one thing that just makes you full of energy and boosts your immune system?
I would say eat your meat.
And we would second that. We thank you guys for joining with us this evening. We'll be back next Friday, same time, same place. Oh, by the way, we got a really special guest next week, Dr. Robert Kiltz. He is a huge proponent of, he's a board certified fertility specialist, and he's going to be joining with us. He's a huge carnivore. As a matter of fact, you guys can check him out on his daily meetup at 5 a.m. in the morning. He's definitely in my tribe because every morning at 5 a.m. He gets up at 3. He's like Carrie and Ken. He does his exercising at 3 a.m. and then he does his meditation and he jumps on and does a live at 5 a.m. and he starts his day off with a cup of coffee and a slab of butter, real butter, not I can't believe it's not butter, margarine. He does it with real butter. So we'll have him on next Friday with us. In the meantime, stay safe, stay well, and stay at the hospital. We'll see you next Friday, everybody.
Yeah.